Well, good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Greater Cumberland. We come together to support each other in thoughtful spiritual exploration and to work together for a kinder, more just world. And we welcome all who would like to walk this journey with us. I am Jan Chippendale. I'm a member of the congregation. And today we welcome back Lora Powell-Haney as our guest minister. Lora is serving as Director of Religious Education with the Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. She has a Master of Divinity degree from Meadville Lombard Theological School and is in the process of seeking ordination as a Unitarian Universalist minister.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be back with you again, coming over the mountain this morning, mountains, plural. Was amazing. So sorry, that words escape me. Our chalice lighting this morning is based on the words of William Stafford. It's called The Blessing of Right Now. The words of poet William Stafford. It could happen anytime. Tornado, earthquake, Armageddon. It could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, That's why we wake and look out. No guarantees in this life, but some bonuses, like morning, like right now. May this light we kindle awaken us to the blessings of this day, this morning, this moment we share together. And I would invite you now to rise in body or in spirit as a reminder that yes, even though we have pretended we have some control over time and have fallen back an hour, it is indeed morning as we experienced already. So please rise in body or in spirit and sing together hymn number 38, Morning Has Broken. When I first moved to a small farm in central Maryland, it's not as west as here, but it's not as east as where I had moved from. So there's that. So a small farm. It was 20 years ago now. There was a house, mostly, and a barn, and a creek running through the property, 2 ponds, a spring house, and 2 old apple trees. My then husband had plans. He had plans. A vineyard of native grapes, heirloom fruit trees, a vegetable garden, berry patches, nut trees, sheep, chicken. Yeah. But I was most intrigued by those old apple trees. The first year we lived there, the neglected trees produced a few insect-bitten apples. There wasn't much of the apple left, most of the mush, but we culled enough to make a small batch of cider, which was very exciting, and a couple of pies, which was even more exciting. I felt called to return that gift of apples, that unexpected something from trees that had long been neglected. So on a bitterly cold winter solstice morning, I bundled up and wandered out with a jar of cider and wassailed those trees, giving each a sip of the cider made from their own apples. I'm sure the neighbors thought nothing of it. Hail to thee, old apple tree, I sang and sang and sang and laid hands on the trunks and breathed my gratitude. The next year, we had 3 times more apples. I'm sure it was me. One of those trees is still producing. My former husband's vision of a small, working, sustainable, and subsistence-providing farm came into being, and the gifts from the earth go round and round and round. I have another memory too of when the blueberry bushes finally started producing, that my oldest son, who would have been probably about 6 at this time, would suddenly disappear from the house and the side yard where he would often play. And it took me a while to figure out what was happening, because I would look over the deck down where the berries were, and there he would be. So we didn't get a lot to can or freeze, but he had a full belly. And he returned the gift. All these years later, he is now working as a baker. Yes, it's okay to make messes. We learn. Wall Kimmerer wrote about acknowledging gifts. Acknowledging the gifts you've received creates a sense of abundance. Certainly that's what it felt like as the apples produced, kept coming, just kept coming. The knowing that you already have what you need. And the view of the Anishinaabe, the indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes, it's not just fruits, like say a service berry or a beauty berry or any of those berries that you might find wild that are considered gifts. Rather, all of the sustenance that the land provides, from fish to firewood. Everything that makes our lives possible, she writes, the splints for baskets, roots for medicine, the trees whose bodies make our homes, and the pages for our newspapers and books, is provided by the lives of more than human beings. When we speak of these not as things, but as gifts, our whole relationship to the natural world changes. Kimmerer talks and writes often, I think in all of her work, of a gift economy as opposed to a market economy. We're very familiar with market economy. The gift economy is based on relationship rather than on the exchange of money for goods, that is the market economy. She further writes, in an economy based on gratitude and reciprocity, I accept the gift and spread it around with a dish of berries to my neighbor. Well, I think I said this before, but I love this part, who makes a pie to share, who then feels so wealthy in food and friendship that they volunteer at the food pantry. The cycle keeps going. And as I read that, and as I've been working a little bit further away from that farm that I lived on for a while, I moved someplace else now. How do we cultivate a relationship with the gifts of earth when most of us do indeed rely on supermarkets or convenience stores for food? Especially when our climate is crying out in pain. How do we do that? That's the biggest question. We'll delve into it in a little bit more, and you may have some thoughts already. I can see the wheels turning there. What are we doing? Indigenous Alaskan Chidai Zi Kai wrote, when an indigenous language describes the timing of the salmon run, the gathering of berries, or the change in river ice, it reflects a living relationship with the earth. Those words carry centuries of ecological knowledge and spiritual understanding. When the climate shifts so dramatically that the salmon no longer return when they once did, or the berries ripen weeks earlier, those languages lose their grounding. And when the land disappears, the vocabulary of that place, the expressions born from its abundance, begin to disappear too. I realize that as I'm talking about gifts and gratitude and thanks, that this paragraph seems really dark, doesn't it? More than just land disappears when our climate is in the kind of crisis it's in right now. Culture disappears, people disappear. That's a loss that can never quite come back. And we know that. So how do we shift from this kind of market economy that says more and more and cheaper, even as our costs are going up and up and up right now? A scarcity mentality rather than an abundance mentality changes our relationship with each other, with the planet, and with these gifts that come from the earth. I was considering our UU values of interdependence, generosity, and equity that all call us into relationship, as Kimmerer and Chidea remind us, that it is our relationships with the gifts of the earth and with each other that create a kind of economy that can be sustained, that create riches and circles of abundance when we remember that, when we pay attention to that. So I started thinking how, since I am moved away from the standing down by the berry bushes, stuffing my mouth with them, or watching my son do that, to going to the grocery store to buy a basket of berries that came from quite far away, probably, especially if I'm buying blueberries in, November, which I do because I like them with my yogurt and my granola. How can I possibly shift myself from a market economy mindset, which says I pick up that thing of berries and I hand somebody probably my card or wave my phone over and I have berries. So I did one small thing, and I invite you to this practice as well. When I'm going grocery shopping and I want to pick up those blueberries, even though I do try to eat seasonally if I can, I pick up that little carton of blueberries and I look at the label and see where it was grown. Where did that come from? And I hold it for just a moment because I don't want to look strange in the grocery store. And I think of how far that berry traveled and who might have picked it and who brought it all the way from that place across the mountains and the seas and the rivers to this place, this market, this grocery store, and who put it on the shelf there. And I say, thank you. And then I say it again, thank you. Thank you. And then I say it again as I'm eating my yogurt and granola and blueberries. So that doesn't completely shift an economy. And I know I've said this before when I've preached here. The practice shifts me. It changes me. And it does create a relationship of sorts. And perhaps I would even be bold enough at that point when I see someone putting out all this produce to go and say thank you to that person. And maybe I learn their name and create a relationship that way. I could also go to the farmer's market or perhaps plant a berry bush in a pot on my back deck. Or if I'm really bold, try to dig a hole deep enough amongst all the roots of all the trees in my backyard to put a berry bush of some sort. To create a cycle and a circle of gratitude for the gifts that are given freely, that I didn't earn, Do I deserve them? That's a whole nother sermon. But it changed me. I think of those values of interdependence, generosity, and equity as cultural shifts as well. The reminder that we are all in this together. That really and truly there is enough for all of us if we share. Changing our own culture from scarcity to abundance is so hard. It is so hard because all around us are messages that there's not enough for you, there's not enough for me. I have to hoard this. I have to keep as much as I can in case. And it is a frightening thing to take that step of saying, maybe not. Maybe I can let go of something and share. Kimmerer writes more about economics, which was a surprising thing as I shifted from reading about service berries to suddenly there's economics. Okay, we can do that. She writes, my economics colleagues speak of these everyday miracles as natural resources, all those things that we extract from the earth, let's say, natural resources, as if they were our property, just waiting to be transformed. In the ecological sciences, we call them ecosystem services, as if they were the inevitable outcomes of the ongoing function of the ecological machine. But to me, she writes, simply as a human person, filling my basket with berries and my belly with pie, they feel like gifts bestowed by the other beings whose lives throb around us. This time of year, as the veil between the worlds thins, I try to pay attention more deeply to the songs of the earth, to the songs of the people, to the song of spirit, to practice gratitude by living it. Sometimes that appears in my life as saying thank you to the person who has made the food that they hand me through the car window when I'm running late and I need to get breakfast quickly. Doesn't that sound strange? Say thank you to the person who hands me the food through the car window. But they were part of that process. And it changes their facial expressions too. To say thank you instead of grumbling that it's expensive. Because that is true too. I brought a couple of props today. One is an apple that was not from the tree that I was talking about earlier, but is nonetheless an apple. I read a bit of advice from somewhere that said, if you have an apple and you're about to leave the house, take the apple with you. And that has saved my belly more times than I care to admit. So it's become a habit. So there's my nice little apple. which I will eat on the way home. And this other one, I don't know if you all can see that or not. This is a persimmon. I was like, look at that. This was from the Mount Vernon Unitarian Church campus. They have a greenhouse and there's this little patch of things growing. I have worked there almost 2.5 years now. I didn't know it was there. And I went for a walk on Thursday, was walking around trying to go from building to building, and I spotted in amongst the kind of wild shrubbery this brilliant orange fruit from afar, and I thought, is that an apple? Oh, I was so excited, it's an apple. And I got closer, it's not an apple, that's a persimmon. And this is an Asian persimmon, so they're very large. Our native persimmons from this area are tiny, and you must not eat them until they're nearly rotten, because otherwise they pucker. And I remember reaching up to pluck this, and I thought, boy, did I have to work to get it off that tree too. I tell you, I was worried I was taking the branch with me, but I persisted, and I got this persimmon. It is hard like a rock. I am not entirely sure this one will ever counter ripen, and I don't care because it is beautiful, and it was an unexpected gift from someone who planted that tree who knows how long ago, and the people who at least partially tended it because it's still kind of overgrown. And the other thing is, when I plucked this off of there after much struggling, I thought maybe there's something else here too. And I turned and I looked and I saw clusters and clusters of the brightest purple berries I have ever seen in my life. It didn't look natural. They were so purple. For the first time in my life, after reading about them for so long, I actually saw American beauty berries. And now I want some. Not to eat for me, they're meant for birds, but they are spectacular. And I am just in awe and gratitude that there are so many different kinds of things growing out there in the world, even when they're never going to get soft enough for me to eat. I'm okay with that because they exist. And that is a gift. I want to close with a quote that it sort of made me laugh and cry at the same time. The LOL sob. Yes. From Lora Stapleton. I have no idea who Lora Stapleton is. I just found this and I said, I need to say that. Lora writes, you feel depressed because in every historical human culture known to anthropology, people sang together, danced together, and ate food together. And you don't sing and you don't dance and you eat alone in the dark. This made me laugh. You are a singing ape. And you are meant to know 50 dances by heart. Which hilltops are sacred? And the names of every plant it is possible to eat. So I invite you to forage carefully with a good guide, to give gratitude to those gifts that are not earned but freely given, and to return the gift over and over, creating a sustainable relationship with yourself and with all the beings on this planet, and thereby changing the world. Amen. And blessed be. Gratitude for all of you and for the opportunity to come and speak with you and talk with you and get to know you from the very innermost part of my heart. I offer these closing words from Reverend Tandy Rogers, who's one of my professors at Meet the Lombard. An incredibly creative person. I'm in awe, in awe. May you notice what is quietly good. May you give thanks with your whole body, not as performance, but as deep practice, a way of staying rooted in the sacred, even when the wind picks up and swirls around you. Go in peace, in gratitude, and in ever widening circles of thanks.